Hey guys, Carrie for Homeland, Season 5, Episode 9, The Litvinov Roost. And holy shit, that is how you write a Homeland episode. This was by far the best episode of the season. It was near perfect. It really was, guys. I pretty much loved this episode. Sorry it's taking me so long to review this episode, but I figured since a new episode comes out tonight, I might as well review last week's episode. And damn, what a great episode it was. My only real complaint with this episode is Quinn. I'm going to talk about Quinn's character for a second before we just get into this episode. Because let me say this, Rupert Friend, I think, is a very good actor. He does a very good job as a character of Peter Quinn. He's done a very good job as that character for seasons now. This season, he's just really not fitting in here, and especially in this episode, he feels completely out of place, and he feels like he's in a different episode. Because other than Quinn's stuff in this episode was near perfect. I loved almost everything going on. This episode was genuinely intense. It was also the big reunion for Carrie and Saul. But let's just get into there's a lot to talk about, and I am so happy by the way it played out because it seemed like it was going to be boring because of the last week's episode, but it turned out to be a lot more interesting. So we get Carrie in the car with Itai, who drops her off to meet Saul. Itai tells her that she broke Saul's heart when she opposed him being director. She says she wishes she was bringing better news this time. Itai leaves, and she heads inside. Saul watches from a window. Saul tells her to get inside fast, and you know what she's going to tell him. You know that she's going to tell him the woman that you're in love with is betraying you. And she starts to cry, says his name. She doesn't want to tell him what she's going to tell him. I mean, obviously, it's really hard for him. And he says, come here, and he embraces her. It's a really sweet reunion. I like seeing these two reunite, and on good terms. I like that they weren't at each other's throats in this episode. So she fills Saul in on the link between Allison and Ahmed, and he says it's not definitive and doesn't buy it. He doesn't think that Carrie's telling the truth. I don't think he doesn't think Carrie's telling the truth. I think he thinks that she's something mixed up or it's just not right. He does not think Allison is what Carrie is saying she is. So Carrie says Ahmed was under suspension for embezzling American money. He asks why she thinks Allison is working for the Russians. She says Allison tried 3 times to kill her, which, yeah, that is a very valid reason. She says Allison had access to his kill box too. He says he's still not convinced and says he doesn't want to be. He says this would mean the Russians have been inside U.S. intelligence for more than a decade, and she says that's why they have to know. Because clearly the Russians have been inside their intelligence, and she needs to know that this is what's going on. So let's get to Quinn this episode. Not that his stuff was bad. It really was not bad. I was into his stuff in this episode. It just felt completely different from the rest of the episode, and I really wasn't as into it as I wanted to be. Quinn is in the back of a panel truck still as it pulls up to some derelict apartments. Bye-bye, and the BB and the guys open the truck and then open the compartment where they stashed him. They drag him out, take him inside. He hears power tools and sees work being done. There are canisters and rooms sealed by plastic. He's taken to a room, pushed to his knees, then chained to a wall. They tape his legs now too. One of them offers him a drink. Quinn asks the guy if he knows the others are making sarin gas and says it's a fucked up way to die. He says it's horrible. The guy says fine, no water, and walks off. He tells the guy to go to Syria and he can see it. So Saul and Carrie have a meet with the Germans, Adler and Astrid, because they think that they will know more what's going on. He tells them that they have a case against Allison that they need to prove, and he says they need proof of her treason, and Carrie says getting her on tape is the best thing to do. And I do agree with Carrie. Probably getting her on tape, that's probably the best proof they can get. And Saul says he can plant something on Allison, and Adler asks about Langley buy-in, and Saul says they're in no position to get CIA approval. Adler asks why they should do this. Saul says if Allison is a Russian agent, they have as much or more to lose as they do. So Adler agrees to help. Kasim watches a video that Quinn told him not to, that Quinn told him to. He's horrified. Saul shows up unannounced to Allison and closes the drapes, and I love the way the scene was done. You can tell this entire scene, he's a bit suspicious, but he's not 100% sure what's going on with her. So he basically is just trying to keep tabs on her in the best way he can. So, basically, he says he couldn't risk calling. She asks what's going on. He says he never heard from Carrie. And, of course, he's lying to her because he wants to see if maybe something will come out or something's not going to make sense that she's going to say. She asks if they'll get the documents back. He says sit down so they can talk, and she does. And he says he's been offered asylum in Israel. And she says that's not what she heard. She says he ran before they can hand him to the FBI. He says he's leaving for Tel Aviv and came to say goodbye. Allison says it makes him look guilty and says he can't be Mossad after all this. He says this SDR blew up the plane, and Carrie's trying to prove that. He says they won't see each other again, and I like what he's trying to do. He's trying to make her feel guilt. He's trying to make her feel like, oh shit, I'm the one that caused this. I'm the one that did this. Because he wants her to admit that she is the one. You know, he doesn't want to think that she is the one, but in case she is, he wants her to feel that genuine guilt. You can definitely tell that here. So Allison says he's being dramatic. He says maybe, then says he'll miss her. He says he was asleep for 10 years and she woke him up. He beds her, and after she falls asleep, he gets up, he creeps downstairs, grabs her purse and phone. He plugs a USB device into her phone. And by the way, I love that Saul wasn't an idiot in this episode. I thought they were going to handle this completely different than they did, and I'm very happy the way they handled this. I really thought Saul was going to be like, oh no, there's no way that you're stupid, you know, there's no way. I thought something really stupid was going to happen, but no, I think they handled it really well, actually. And the way that Saul reacted is the way I think Saul would react to these sort of things, because you know, even though he's kind of had his differences with Carrie, at the end of the day, something like this, he is going to trust Carrie's word over Allison's. So he's still not 100% sure, though, because this is Allison, the girl that he's been having this, you know, relationship with, and all of a sudden she's been using him. So he gets back into bed, and she asks if everything's okay. He says he needed a drink of water and tells her to go back to sleep. She cuddles to his side, and he holds her. Kasim looks around at what's going on, sees a plastic room and a camera. Dr. Aziz comes in and says it's all right that he's looking, and says they got it almost right. He asks if Aziz made this, and he says he designed it. He asks Aziz what it is, and he says it's a testing chamber to test the sarin. By the way, guys, no during this entire episode. Very interesting. Where the hell has Laura been, by the way? I have not seen Laura since, like, episode 5. She's been gone, which I'm fine with. The Laura character never really feel like she fit into the show. But during, I mean, maybe During's gone because Saul and Carrie are on good terms, and maybe the more closer these two get, the more farther away During is. I understand that, but it does feel weird that During's at least not somewhat a big part of this. So he says the chamber's sealed, and if they have an antidote anyway that limits the effects of the gas. Kasim asks about the camera, then says Bye-Bye is going to test it on Quinn through the original plan, though the original plan was to take a Jew. So essentially, you know that they're gassing, and I'm like, are they doing like a Holocaust situation here? I mean, it really seemed very interesting. So Asher and Adler meet up with Dar and Allison and talk about a defector from Russia who is high up, and Allison wants to know his name. Astrid says they can only have his code name Calico for now, and Adler says he wants 5 million to defect and give his info. So Astrid says that the man wants to live in Boca Raton, and they prattle to Dar about the Russian man's demands. They negotiate what the Americans and Germans will get from him. Allison's distracted, then excuse herself from the meeting, and obviously she can tell that, again, they're on to her. She can tell, and I like that Allison's not stupid in this episode. She can tell that people are after her. So Carrie and Saul listen to this all go down. They hear Allison panting nervously in her office. She grabs her purse and pulls out her phone. She sends a text that says, change of plans. I don't feel like going out tonight. And the other person, now we don't know who this other person is she's texting. And it makes it just as effective. It makes us very interested in seeing what's going on, and really shows how shady Allison really is. So the other person texts back if she wants them to bring dinner and offers Vietnamese or Italian. She says pasta. He says she's always in the mood. She texts back a devil face with horns emoji. They wonder if it's a code, and that's very interesting. It could very well be a code to something. So Quinn lies on the floor when Kasim comes in. He sits Quinn up and gives him a drink. He thanks him. He also has fruit for him. He asks if Kasim went online and says it's hard to watch and says they will kill innocents. Kasim says terror is the necessary to a caliphate, and he says if the West gives what they want, Assad out of Syria, they won't use it. They also want the UN to recognize them as a state. And Quinn says it won't happen. He says they'll send a warning. He says they will send a demonstration of the weapon. Quinn says that's why he's still alive. They're building a test chamber. Quinn says they won't give in, and Kasim says it's all his will, but Quinn says the blood will be on his hands. Then he says maybe it's Allah's will to stop this. He tells him to get rid of the DF so they can't make the sarin. He says dump the DF and walk away without looking back, and basically they watch Allison from cameras they planted. She's pouring wine. There are 2 glasses, and definitely very interesting with this gas. So definitely interesting what was going to happen here. So Saul says maybe she's not what they thought since she's not running, and that is a valid point. But again, Allison is a lot smarter than I think Saul thinks she is. And Astrid says it's a civilian she's waiting for. Ivan shows up, and I knew that it was going to be Ivan. The second that she was texting one, I'm like, it's probably going to be Ivan. So he says traffic was terrible. He takes off his jacket. He says no, he knows what she likes and unpacks the food. He kisses her neck and she moans. Ivan starts doing her against the counter, and Saul turns away. He walks out of the room. He can't watch. I mean, he can't believe that this girl that he's been having sex with is having sex with a completely different man, and he didn't even know. So, literally right in front of Saul, he is having sex with her. So, this is probably the first instance that Saul knows there's something not right here. And Astrid is stunned. Carrie doesn't know. She tells her that Saul and Allison were involved. Carrie curses, goes after Saul. He tells her not to say anything. She asks if Allison is doing this as a performance, then asks if he gives her a heads up, lover to lover. Saul says he didn't, and apparently doesn't know her at all. He didn't know anything about her. And Carrie says that she's been there. Saul says no. She asks if he believes she's innocent. He says he doesn't know what to believe. And I can understand Saul's point. I mean, he's finding out all this stuff about this woman. He does not know if he can trust her or not, and I like that he isn't judging. He's not like, I can't trust her, I can't trust her. He really doesn't know at this point. So Carrie says the B and D won't humor them much longer, and he says they can up the ante. She goes back to talk to Astrid. Everyone's asleep while Kasim sits awake, haunted. He creeps to the one room where the tanks are and opens one, and he sees it's empty. Looks like it was already mixed. He sees canisters in the test chamber. He tries the door, but it's locked, and Allison sits in an outdoor cafe. Astrid goes to meet her. She thanks Allison for meeting her outside the office, then says Calico put his kids on the plane to Talon and wants the timetable accelerated, and she says that he's spooked. And she says he told them anywhere but Berlin for the handover and says it's been penetrated. She says he wouldn't tell them for what, but she thought Allison should know. Allison is stunned, and Astrid says now she can get out in front of it. And Allison says he's making this up to increase his value. Astrid says they'll know soon enough and says he's promised to show the material that was passed to SVR. He says he's coming across through Latvia to a safe house in Hamburg, and just seeing that Astrid is working with Allison, I thought was very interesting here, because that's why they're covering up what's going on. So she leaves, and Allison sits thoughtful for a moment. Carrie cheers quietly for her to make a move. Allison pulls out her phone, makes a call. She asks Nina for a train ticket to Copenhagen, and now that she knows what's going on, she can find a way out of this, and she says reschedule her afternoon. The BDR orders a team to be there at the station before. She then makes a call. Carrie shushes the room. There are a few beeps. Carrie says it's a call code. Saul agrees. She's on the move. Allison walks down the street looking around carefully, then hauls a cab, and she takes out her SIM card, and Carrie says this is what she'd be doing. Saul says he hopes the satellite transmitter works, and Allison gets out at the train station. She looks around. There are two teams there watching her. She isn't getting on the Copenhagen train, is headed for the S-Bahn inside. That's a local train, and Allison's on the platform waiting. So she gets on the train, then the door chimes. She looks around, gets back off at the last moment. She walks away. She goes to the opposite platform, and Astrid asks where she is. They tell her that she's running. She's going to Potsdam, and it's a very intense scene. You don't know what's going to happen here, and I love that. This entire episode, I didn't know what was going to happen. It was really intense. I definitely like seeing that. So, really intense stuff there. Astrid says it can shut the train down between stations and pull her off with guns, dogs, and guns. Allison gets onto this train, looks around. She stays put. It's in the country now. Astrid makes a call, says Adler approved a warrant. Saul says he thanks him. The train pulls into a station and she gets off. She heads upstairs. They have drones watching her. She goes across the plaza, grabs a key from under a Volvo. She looks around, then unlocks it, and she pulls out. The drones follow. She heads out of the small town into the country past fields of cows. She pulls off onto a smaller side road, then an even smaller one. She pulls up to a gate, enters a code, and the gate opens, and then the GPS goes down, and Carrie says it's a completely dead zone, and there must be jamming towers. The drones can see her, but they can't hear her, and I thought that was very interesting. So Saul says they have to have confirmation it's SVR, and Carrie is panicking. She has no idea what to do, and now that she knows what they're up against, I mean, she's even more terrified, because now these are the people that have been after her. So literally anything can happen right now. So Astrid shows him the house. There's a man waiting. It's Ivan. Astrid says he's the SVR Berlin station chief. Saul says to send in the team and arrest her now. Allison tells Ivan she's burned. He says she's okay. Takes her inside the house. He looks around. By the way, guys, let me just say, everything we're getting here is everything I've wanted all season long. I mean, it really is the Homeland that I love. And Allison says one of the deputy chiefs is defecting with evidence that she's a mole. He says it's impossible. She asks why. He says it doesn't work that way. He says two chiefs have access to the material and says both are fishing on the coal of Venezuela. He says it must be a misunderstanding. Then he curses and says she's been played, and an alarm blares, and Ivan is told that federal police have crashed the gate. Ivan tells his men to crash the hard drive. Ivan says she led them there, and he curses. She says calm down. He says he's very calm, asks how the fuck she could be so careless. He curses at her in Russian. She slaps him, grabs her face, and she tells him to stop and think. He says it's over. She says think. He says they're done. He says they fucking lost, and she says they have not. She says to listen carefully. The police, they pull up to arrest Allison. Ivan comes out with hands up, and so does Allison. They take them into custody, and it appears that things are going well, that they were just arrested, but you know that there definitely is something more that's going to happen. Because this is only episode 9 that we're on. We're only on episode 9. I mean, let's be real here. You knew this was not going to end that easily. I knew it wasn't going to. So Carrie and Saul watch on the drone feed. They're loading into separate cars. The BDR shuts down the surveillance. Saul looks stunned. Dar tells Carrie and Saul that's quite a story. He says they brought down the temple. Saul says this explains a lot, says he didn't want to believe it either. Dar says he's disgusted with both of them. Astrid says Allison is in interrogation, and Dar goes to talk to her. Ivan's in another room, and Carrie and Saul are left alone to watch, and Allison calls this travesty and says some fucking clown just tore apart 12 years of work. She plays dumb and says ask Ivan himself when he asks for names. And Dar says Ivan has diplomatic immunity. She says he can't send Ivan back to Russia. She says he's been getting intel from Ivan for years, and he asks why she ran today, and she says that she didn't run. She says she was told by Astrid about a mole in her station. She says she was trying to fool his people, not hers. And she says she went to bring Ivan in and says she has done that. She says he's been her Joe for 12 years and says he can understand that. Dar ponders, and obviously Carrie and Saul look very intense. They know something is going to happen. And then the rest of this episode is Kasim and Quinn. Now, this was actually really intense, I have to say. And if this is truly the end of this plot, I'm a bit satisfied, but also a bit disappointed. Kasim and the others come to get Quinn. One holds a gun on him as they haul him up. They march him to the test chamber. Quinn sees the camera on him. Then he sees the test chamber. Kasim says something in Arabic and cuts his eyes. Quinn makes a run for it. He's tackled, and as he's done, Kasim stabs him with an antidote injection and whispers, maybe you will live. Quinn is locked into the chamber. They turn on the gas. Quinn watches through the door as Bye turns it on. Kasim steps back closer to the cameras. Quinn's eyes start to water. Drool comes out his mouth. His hands start seizing. I mean, clearly this is having a huge effect on him. He's drooling uncontrollably. Snot is coming out of his nose by the bucket. He collapses, groaning in pain, and that's how the episode ends. So, our biggest question is, did they just kill off Quinn? I mean, there is that possibility. There is definitely the possibility that Quinn could very well be dead, but would they really kill off Quinn in that way? I mean, we've seen how much of a fight Quinn's put up. We've seen what he's had to deal with. I really don't know if they just killed off Quinn because, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like they did kill him off, and this drug was meant to kill anyone that took it, but did Quinn really die? That's really my big question here. Is he dead? Is there a way to get him out of this? I'm not really sure. We don't see him in the promo for this week's episode, so I don't know if he's dead. We'll have to see what's happening there, but that definitely is going to be very interesting. But I'm much more interested in this Carrie and Saul situation, because Saul now knows what's really going on with Allison. He's still a bit leery, but I feel like Carrie and Saul kind of feel like they should not be involved in this right now, that this is just too much for them. It's too intense. They can't deal with all this, and it's very interesting to see what's going on there. Everything with Allison this episode. What is going on with Allison? I mean, clearly Ivan has a plan for her. She's not going to let them send Ivan back to Russia. She's going to make sure that Ivan's okay, but what really is going to happen in her situation? I'm very interested in what's going to happen there. By the way, guys, no more The Affair. I tried to watch last week's episode. It's probably the end for me. I really don't want to watch The Affair anymore. But let me know what you guys saw this episode. Overall, guys, such an incredible episode. So intense. I loved every minute of it. There were so many moments I was on the edge of my seat. I really did love it. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Supergirl. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.